I'm Ariana Grande.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Erivo.
And you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Visit bpn.fm to discover more.
There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have another amazing guest. I heard a lot about this production of Cats that was this past August at the Music Theater Heritage in Kansas City, but I did not get a chance to see it. I'm very bummed about not being able to go live, but I'm thrilled to have the director of this production, Tim Scott, with me today to discuss it. So welcome, Tim, and thank you for joining me.
Hey, man, what's up? I'm glad to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
I got sent a lot of clips and I guess probably bootlegs or people that were doing, and then the video that you all put together. And there were some really cool choices that y'all did. And I heard you talk a little bit about it. So we'll get into it. But I always like to start before this production with your Cats history. So when were you introduced to this show? Were you obsessed with it growing up? What was your Cats introduction?
Yeah, I hate Cats. I've always hated it. I didn't like anything about it. I think that when our organization decided to do it originally in 2018, so this production that just closed in August of 2025 was a remount of that 2018 production. And so originally when the organization decided to do that, I was not a big fan of the idea. I didn't think that we had the capacity to produce Cats. Of course, 2018 is before the Jellicle Ball and the circus adaptations. I didn't think we had the capacity to produce that show in a way that was kind of what I felt was the expectation, was the global expectation. If you see Cats, Cats looks, feels, sounds like a certain thing. And I didn't think we had, honestly, the financial capacity to produce at that level. So I said I probably would be the perfect person to direct it because I dislike it so much, and I wouldn't do anything like what the conventional norms are for it. That was my introduction to it. I remember when we first started working at it in 2000. Of course, I knew the music. Of course, I'm a huge Andrew Lloyd Webber fan, so I knew the music. The music's obviously so great and so infectious and so dynamic, and so I was a fan of the music. I should have qualified with that. But I remember when we were working on it in 2018. I was as an actor in a production of another show with a Tony-nominated Broadway director who will remain unnamed. And he asked me what I was doing. And I said, well, we're doing Cats, but we're not doing Cats. And he's like, oh, you're doing Cats without Cats. And he very openly made fun of me, made fun of the idea. And so I was a little kind of nervous, but I actually worked with that same director probably 6 months later after our production. And he said, how was Cats without Cats? And I said, we sold out every production. So that's my introduction to it. And I do think that it was, at the time in 2018, nothing like what we did was being done. It's almost in vogue now when we revived it just in August. I'm like, well, everyone's doing it now. But in 2018, it was a real outlier. And even more so then, we had a lot of national attention on social media, kind of questioning our choices because it was in such conflict with how it's usually done.
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear you say that because now it's like almost the norm. There's been so many different versions, and I think you said it with the Jellicle Ball and circus cats and coaster cats and all the other variations I've seen, this past couple of years, honestly. But I do love that you mentioned that you kind of took. I saw this in the YouTube video, so we'll get right into it. You took the thing out that most people criticize if you did it in 2018 and then again this year, which is the Cats costumes. And that's a choice on purpose to try to lend more to the story and the music. And so walk me through kind of that conversation of in 2018, how do you all decide, hey, we're going to kind of go a little rogue, that nobody's doing this. And then now it's hey, this is actually kind of happening a lot more. How are we going to adapt it into our version?
Yeah, I think philosophically, what we do at MTH, Music Theater Heritage, is we try to approach things through contemporary sensibilities, right? That's not a new idea, that we try to provide the opportunity for the audience to see themselves in what we're producing on stage. And so we try to scrub away anything that's in conflict with that philosophy. So with cats, the obvious conflict is no one's going to see themselves or relate to actors covered in yak fur or any kind of synthetic or authentic fur. And so we really wanted to remove that barrier. Our space, at least in 2018, it's a 7-row theater with 240 seats, full thrust. So you are immersed without us even trying to immerse you. So we know we had the opportunity of presenting cats in a way that was already unlike most productions, because you're never going to see Grisabella walk within touching distance. I mean, the proximity is just so powerful. And so that was kind of the foundation of our approach. We wanted to really have the stories be the star of the show, and the choreography. At that time also, Cats is known for contemporary ballet and contemporary modern dance, and we didn't think that was authentic to the ethos of the story either. What we know is this is a band of misfit cats, right? Cats, I use air quotes, cats that meet at a junkyard at midnight. And we didn't think that contemporary ballet would be the vocabulary of that community. So we thought it would be more akin to street jazz and hip hop. And so again, in 2018, that was very different than most productions of Cats. So that's where we started from. We started from how can we make this accessible in 2018 and of course 2025 to modern audiences, that they can see themselves. It doesn't look like an antiquated piece. It doesn't look like a museum piece or even a theme park type of piece. I say that all respectfully. We felt like this interpretation and this presentation would allow people to see the themes that I've always thought were there, themes of ageism and bullying and discrimination and community. That's the obvious one, community, right? But I think ageism is a really powerful theme in the play that most people may not see. And with our presentation, I felt like it was really upfront.
Yeah. It's the one thing, you referenced the Jellicle Ball, and I always thought when I first saw it, I saw one of their first early previews, that it took away the biggest criticism that the Cats haters had, which is like the kind of absurdity of the cats in costume and crawling around and everything. And it told the story in a slightly different vessel, but to me, in a little bit clearer way for a lot of the non-super fans or non-Cats fans. And it sounds like you're trying to do that same thing, or did, not trying, you did that same thing with slight tweaks and variations. So can you walk me through some of the other tweaks you all made? Like I did notice, I think I only counted 13 performers in a cast that's usually 30, right? The dance, you said, is very different. It does look like there's a little bit of the storytelling slightly different. Like, what were some of those, like, for people that didn't get to see it, what were those changes?
Yeah, again, it starts with our philosophical approach in that, we believe that theater is meant to be theatrical and not literal, right? So any kind of literal interpretations we try to shy away from, because we don't think that's the power of the medium. That's best suited in film and things of that nature. So we really try to amplify the storytelling aspect of theater. And that was part of the cast size. We wanted to be very transparent about the doubling and how the doubling happened. We wanted the people in the audience to see the doubling. We almost, again, it all stemmed from, we're not trying to present these characters as anthropomorphic cats. We were really trying to say, no, these are human beings. These stories are human stories. And so we would take on sensibilities where it needed to happen. But there are a lot of ancillary characters in Cats that really don't have heroic storylines, of course. So we tried to center on the historic storylines, and we also tried to be very transparent and overt about the doubling and let the audience see the doubling happen. So they really felt like they were watching something being made in front of them. I mean, in this day and age, I think that is the magic of theater. The magic of theater is showing people the secret sauce and how it's all done, and not trying to hide it, and letting this one actor is playing 4 characters. We're never trying to hide that, because I think that's what's so special and unique about theater. And if you can let the audience in on that, I think that's a very powerful and compelling tool that is unique only to theater.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. And I think that the live production makes everything unique because it's different every night. There's slight tweaks and you have the ability to watch more of what's happening. And I think, my criticism of Cats has always been there's too many cats on stage at all times, that as someone who it's hard to figure out what you're watching the first time you see it. Now, someone like me who's now knows way too much about it, has seen it a lot, I can kind of direct my attention to the places I want to at the times. But you almost eliminate some of that by pointing them into, you should focus your attention on this particular part of the story right now, without all the other stuff happening in the background when you've got 30 people. Is that kind of how it felt? I really wish there was some archival footage of this that I could have seen, because I was like dying to watch this.
I mean, but also, we want people to connect with the people they're literally in the room with. So another example is, our another philosophical thing about our theater is that we believe in having all of the artists be seen all of the time. And so that means the musicians in our shows are always on stage. They're always visible to the audience. We don't believe in orchestra pits. We don't believe in, shunning people and having it sound like you're watching a musical with tracks, which it always sounds like to me. So you're seeing all of the musicians in real time as part of the architecture and the scenescape. And our pianist, who's also our music director, is usually really prevalent. And so for our production, our pianist also doubled as Bustopher Jones, right? So when we get to Bustopher Jones, this person that's been playing the piano all along turns around, someone else sits down and starts playing the piano, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I didn't realize this person was anything more than a piano player. And he's Bustopher Jones. He's got a mic and, a microphone, and we dress him up and we bring it into the communal storytelling aspect, which is the play. And I think that kind of surprise element, even it's not a huge, surprise, but that component makes the audience lean in even more and be like, oh, wow, this is kind of a magical surprise, childlike, and I say that in the best possible way, production, to where there are little secrets and little nuances that don't require, $1 million budgets and stuff like that. It is the power of the convention of storytelling. And so, for us, it's just about, showcasing the actual human beings we have and having our audience relate with the human beings, and the characters in the play is just a vehicle for that.
Yeah. My audience, people listening to the show, it's a lot of cat super fans who are opinionated about all kinds of different aspects of it, which is great. I mean, it's one of my favorite parts is that some of the theories I've made up, I've had some people being like, that's definitely wrong. And other times people are arguing that I love that theory, but I love the community of this Cats fandom. By doing something so different, did you have some feedback in the moment, or not even feedback, but like, did you have the moments where it's like people loved this part of it and the Cat super fans are like, oh, I really missed this part of it? Like, was there any of that type of conversation when you're doing something so different?
Absolutely. We had some people in 2018 that after we opened the show and they saw what it looked like, we're not trying to hide it. It looks like this. I had some people call and say they wanted a refund. They wanted their money back. They didn't want to see it at all. And I spoke to the person. I said, listen, just come see the show. And if you hate it, I'll give you your money back. No, I don't want anything. I want my money back right now. So we refunded the money. The reason I love that story is 2 weeks later, we're in our closing week now. I get an email from our staff. They're like, hey, this lady said she talked to you a few weeks ago. She's insisting on talking to you. I'm like, okay. I call her back and she's like, hey, yeah, I called and, you offered me this, and this, but I said I needed a refund. However, I've heard such great things about it. I'd love to get tickets, but it looks like your website is down because it's not allowing me to purchase tickets. And I'm like, oh no, every single performance is sold out. That's my favorite story to tell. But of course, we do have people in 2025 that, I don't want to say closed-minded. That's a little rude, but they weren't interested if it didn't look like the productions of Cats that they wanted to. And we had some social outrage about that. This isn't really Cats. This isn't really Cats. But on the other side of the coin, as you've indicated, there are so many Cats superfans. We had people come from all over the country in 2018 and in 2025. And many people, mostly in 2018, because as we've indicated, it's so common now to reimagine it. But mostly in 2018, people say, and I drove in from St. Louis, I drove in from Chicago. I've seen the show 12 times in London and New York. I've never, ever been emotionally impacted. And I was by this production. And I believe it. I believe it because, again, certainly in 18, when it was so different, and, being able to see yourself or your parents, Gus the theater cat, for us, he has Alzheimer's. That's kind of how I read it. So he has Alzheimer's disease. And, my grandfather had Alzheimer's, and they keep repeating themselves. And that's what Gus is doing. And so framing it that way, it was just really emotional, and people really were moved by that. And what I always say is, I don't feel that people get moved. You don't go to Cats to be moved, right? You go for the costumes and the dancing and the spectacle. I mean, it was part of the mega musical sensation. So when we had people weeping, I mean, distressed, weeping after Gus the Theater Cat, and then certainly after Grizabella, I think that's an expectation that people didn't feel that they would, an outcome they didn't feel they would have when they came to see our show.
Yeah, I love hearing that, because one of the most common pieces of feedback I heard during the Jelka Ball, and I'm assuming this is the exact same thing that happened in 2018 for you all, which is, I think, is so great for Cats, is that it turned Cats haters into Cats lovers. Because the biggest criticism always for Cats are the costumes and the story, and it's like, it's confusing and it's there. And if you have eliminated them out of Cats and tried to lean into the story, you're taking away the thing that they don't get, or that they are criticizing. And I loved how many people, I'm assuming a ton of your season ticket holders, who probably saw it on the schedule and were like, oh, Cats, I hate Cats, and then go and are changed, is so good, I think, for not just like the Cats community and the Jellicle family and all that stuff, but for theater in general, because theater is so subjective and can be reimagined so often that there have been times I've walked into a show that I loved that was reimagined and I didn't like as much, but I'm like, I still love this material. And the reverse, where there was like, I didn't like this show, but I love the way this one was put together. And I love that that's a thing that can be happening in 2018 and 2025, and is now seeming to happen a lot more frequently, to bring in new audiences. So was that the experience you had in 2018?
Yeah, I mean, we had lots of people both times. I mean, social media, if you can believe it, is even more prolific in 25 than in 18, but we had lots of people on social media say, I hate Cats. I was dragged to this production against my will, and I'm so grateful. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I mean, that was really the most prominent sentiment. And I'll tell you something else. In 2018, when we licensed the show, if we wanted to license the original artwork, we had to pay an additional fee, right? Usually we come up with our own artwork, but there are some shows like Cats where it's like, it's too iconic, we're going to use this. So in 2025, they don't even give you that choice anymore. You must use the original artwork. And additionally, in 2025, which is different than 2018, maybe you know this, maybe it's a little inside trading that maybe you don't know or care about, but in 2018, there was no rider of any kind about the original production. In 2025, it explicitly makes you sign. You cannot in any way, shape, or form, recreate the original choreography, the original costume design. And I love that. I'm like, how can any of these posers do Cats anymore? Because honestly, as an artist, that's always bothered me. And it still bothers me when I see shows and I'm like, that's not your work. That's not your idea. That's not your scenic design. That's not your costume design. You are stealing someone else's intellectual property. And so I loved seeing, I signed that as quick as I could with pleasure. No problem. We don't have any intention or interest in recreating the original costumes, the original choreography, the original anything. So I think that's interesting that what had evolved, at least with the licensing and the properties over 7 years.
Yeah, I did not know that fact, and I love hearing that too, because, like you said, like as a director, as an artist, you want to make a version of your own using the source material, and versus just Julian Lin's choreography is Julian Lin's amazing choreography. It's great, but that's not creating an MTH choreography for this particular audience. But I do want to go back to something you said, because you talked a little bit about the bus for Jones, being the pianist. What other, not changes, but what were some of the other story arcs that you got to tell that maybe were either slightly different or a little bit more nuanced, that you can make the decision by taking them out of Cat's costume? Were there any other things, this is the part of the story I know way too much of. I know the plot of Cats better than most people. And so I'm fascinated by, I only see 13, you have to double up. That means you can't do certain things this way. You have to do certain things that way. What were some of your decisions that you leaned into this version of the story?
First of all, it's interesting to hear you say I know the plot really well, because that is honestly one of the major criticisms that we get about Cats all the time.
Completely.
There's no plot. It's nothing. Right. And I totally disagree. Being a father and, understanding the lessons and the morals of children's poetry, of course, and they're obviously layered in there very, very well. I think that what we were always interested in doing, and again, I'll be honest in saying I watched the pro shot of the original production of Cats, so I'm familiar with that. I watched it in 2017. I've never revisited it. I've never seen a production of Cats that looks the way production of Cats are supposed to look, which is why I always thought I was the perfect person to direct it. So I can't even speak intelligently about some of the things that you're intimating about how things are usually done, which I think is great. I think it's part of the reason why our production was successful. But I will say that what we were always interested in is leaning into the community aspect in all regards. So, the music, when Grisabella the Glamour Cat makes her first entrance, all we're really given is a shift in music. And I don't know what that's supposed to be other than what the music is telling me, what the sound of the music is telling me. And the sound of the music always, to me, was evocative of danger. This is a dangerous moment, even before she sings, right? So we really tried to highlight those emotions as it relates to community, a community of people coming together. And then all of a sudden, there's some sort of danger. And I think that's relatable today, right? Like, I don't want to be in an unknown part of town at night, and get lost, even with cell phones. And so those are the things we tried to key in on. So the music shifted. Everyone was reacting to the music. Then this person came out through the dark, which was not part of the community. That let them come together in a protective way. And then what we went with from that point was, well, this person is not liked by this community anymore for whatever reason. It doesn't matter what the reason is. I mean, I think that, and again, it's something that I think is so relatable, and I'm so grateful for this podcast, because this doesn't come out in the audience. It's kind of what we layer in as artists. And what we talked about in rehearsal were people fight for so long sometimes that at some point they forget what they're fighting about. They forget why they're upset at each other. And that's kind of what we leaned in with Grisabella. We're like, with the actors, it was like, what's the deal? Why are we pointing these ghost lights at her? Why are we, weaponizing these ghost lights that we had in the play? I don't know. You don't like her. I don't know why. As an artist, you have to, the music is telling us there's something to be on alert about. There's something dangerous coming in. She comes in, Bombalurina, gives a little narrative about who she is, right? And the whole play is very Brechtian, right? That's kind of why we loved leaning into the showing you how theater is made, the presentational side of theater. Bombalurina gives you a little bit of narrative of who she is. Everyone's really has a point of view about her that from the audience's point of view, we wanted them to know that this community was not on board with her for whatever reason. And then she kind of slinks off. And so those are the things that we were really interested and successful in doing. Anytime that kind of, ominous music started, letting our community be on alert, of course, until Old Deuteronomy comes, and then they feel secure because the patriarch figure is there. Those are the things that really allowed us to theatricalize and have really hard, clean juxtapositions to a story where most people say there is no story. So we used the music in addition to the lyrics and the characters to really kind of frame what our trajectory was for the story.
What you said is what initially brought me to this musical when I first saw it was 2016. And when I agreed to do this podcast, it was kind of like I made a joke and then they were like, can you turn this into something? And I was like, I don't know the characters or the story well enough. I just, I'd seen it once. And when I started digging, I think exactly what you said is like, why are they fighting? We don't know. There's that ability to have, okay, we can fill in that blank as an artist is what for me as like a, humor writer and someone who just likes creating. I was like, there's a lot of opportunity between these relationships and the differences. So I leaned into that as the writing side, but it is so true as a performer that your Grisabella can decide why she left the tribe. And that decision does not really change anything on stage. And so that's probably one of my favorite parts of Cats is I could give you a slight variation or tweak. And as I've done 200 plus of these episodes, the amount of times I've talked to somebody performing it in the international tour or on the US tour, when they're still in the middle of it, and been able to be like, did you think about this? Like what you just told me means that. And like, I've never thought about that. That now changes how I think about this moment. And it's like, it's not material to telling the whole story. It's not like it's going to change their singing or the dance number, but it is just a slight variation. And you got to play with that from start to finish. And I liked, as you said, like you saw the 1998 movie once, and then you've not seen it since. And so you really leaned into that. And I think that's a really cool part about Cats and why I was so drawn to what I saw. You know, I unfortunately only have about a minute of the YouTube video you have. Like I really am dying to see the rest. But the ability for you to take that well-known source material, but create something so new while staying so true to it is such a cool part of theater. And I think why I was like so fascinated by your production. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back for more of The Wrong Cat Died.
Again, it's so interesting to talk about our production of Cats because it had two lives. And in 2018, it was very difficult to get buy-in from the actors, right? This is before anything. And so like we're doing Cats without cats. And so you've got this group of actors that it was difficult to get by. And there was a lot of questions about what is this? What are we doing? What is happening here? The idea of you're a community of cats, you know, whatever that means. And, you know, I always used the movie Warriors as a reference, even in 2018. Yeah. I'm like, what are those people? Who are those people? They're all dressed weird with weird makeup. They're just a community of misfits. They're a tribe, right? And so that's what we focused on, the tribal aspect, not the feline aspect. We focused on the tribal aspect of it. And, you know, we had spray paint and spray chalk, and we were spray painting Act 1 when the show started. And Grisabella comes on in Act 2, which is not written. We just had her come on in the little entr'acte, and she spray painted a 2 to make it be Act 2. And all these things that were kind of, you know, again, I stopped short of saying, kind of like gang-like or clique-like, but the movie Warriors has always been my best comp, because it was like, they're just a community like this, and they're out at night, and they're misfits, and they have their community. So I always thought that, but I will say, once they bought in, and once the audience came in and rewarded them, I mean, that group in 2018, many of them didn't even know each other. They are such a close-knit group of people to this day because they kind of went through something. And as an artist, man, isn't that what you always want? Don't you always want, I mean, haven't we all done enough, vanilla versions of fill-in play at fill-in theater over our time to be able to do something that's so abstract and therefore so risky and vulnerable as a performer, because it could be terrible. You could be ridiculed and mocked, and then to have it come through and be so well received. And I just think that that's kind of, as artists, what we're always hoping for. And in musical theater specifically, sometimes that's tough to attain. Yeah.
And Cats can be so personal because it feels like there's a character for everybody. Like there is a storyline in there that you will relate to. And I've always found that that's something that stands out of why there is such more mass appeal, is because depending on who you are, what part of your life you're in, there's probably still one of those characters that you can relate to. But I love hearing that you had 2 lives. That means you have 7 more chances to put this on. Like you have, Cats have 9 lives. You have, I'm waiting for, maybe it'll be a couple years, but there's at least 7 more that you get to do of this version.
Yeah, I tell you, I almost felt like a poser in 2025. I had to justify it to everyone. I'm like, we did this first. We're not jumping on any bandwagons. Yeah. We did this in 2018 where people laughed at us. So I kind of felt like I had to give that disclaimer, but it was so well received in 2018 that we had a lot of people that saw it then that actually came back and were excited to see it again. And we did do it in a slightly larger theater. We have a couple of different venues, which is also part of the reason why I wanted to do it again, because I knew we could, in 2018, we didn't have a ton of money. We don't have a ton of money now. We're a nonprofit theater, but we are better off than we were in 2018. And so I wanted to kind of elevate what we're able to do from a production value standpoint. But I will say that we had a lot of the same artists involved, same lighting designer and same costume designer, because, the aesthetic was so unique. I wanted to make sure we were able to kind of be true to that.
Yeah. Okay. Before we go to the Cats Rapid Fire, I do want to talk a little bit about your upcoming season and any of the shows that you're doing. Because, this, for anybody, I have a lot of US and UK listeners, but if you can get to Kansas City, not that hard of a place to get to. What are some of the shows you're doing and any other type of reimagining that you have in this upcoming season?
Yeah, thank you. That's kind of what MCH is. We try to do the greatest musicals of all time differently in a way that you're not going to see on the national tour or I think the thing we're most excited about next year is our world premiere adaptation of Moby Dick, Herman Melville's Moby Dick, 900-page novel. But our adaptation, what we're excited about is interweaving it with authentic sea shanties. So Blow the Man Down, Drunken Sailor, those are probably the two most popular ones. But when you reread the novel, if you've got, a few months, there are actually some sea shanties that I chose that are in the novel. Spanish Ladies, a sea shanty, is in the novel. When I read that, I was like, whoa, there's a really cool opportunity here to do this as a play with music in a very theatrical way. Really excited about doing Moby Dick. We're also doing a production of The Wiz. And what we do with some of our summer productions is we try to, we did this for our production of Guys and Dolls this year. We tried to turn we had a huge lobby space and we tried to turn it into an immersive experience. So our production will be The Wiz at the Emerald City pop-up in Cabaret. So it'll be great for kids. We'll have yellow brick roads. We'll have tornado, exhibitions that you can walk through. We'll have, the Emerald City Cabaret Club in the back with a green piano and club acts to start the show. So those are two of the things that we're probably most excited about next season.
Awesome. We'll link the website. You can see there's a couple other shows on there. It's a great list. And you had a great season this year too. Of some really classic shows. So if you're in the Kansas City area or can get to the Kansas City area, definitely go check it out. Let's do some quick Cats rapid fire, though, before we get to the $1 million question. So the first one is, if you could go on for any Cats character, who would you want to play?
At this stage of my life, I'd probably want to play Grisabella.
Okay.
I think in my prime, I probably want to play Rum Tum Tugger. Such a fun role. He gets all the great numbers, the great tunes, and he gets to be, a literal rock star. But I think the Grisabella track is just so unique and so perfect and so just set up beautifully. Kind of a princess track too, you don't have to do much.
Yeah, totally. I did have a Rum Tum Tugger question for you because in 2018 was, I think, around the time that they were doing the hip hop Tugger. So did you, like in the UK, were you familiar with that, or did you?
No, I've never heard of that.
Infuse any of that in there? Okay.
Our whole production was hip hop. Our whole production in 2018 was hip hop. So that was challenging too, because the music doesn't always lend itself to it. So our orchestration was very, very different. We didn't talk much about this, but our orchestration was condensed to maybe 6 instruments. When we really leaned into the percussion and the drum aspect to kind of help us with the hip hop vocabulary. But no, I hadn't heard of that. I'll look at it. Okay, I'll definitely send you. It didn't last very long, and it was a little controversial in the Cats fandom space. So I'm glad that you didn't use it as any source material. Who are your favorite and least favorite characters from a personality standpoint? Like, which one would you want to hang out with, and which one would bug you? I love Bombalurina, always have. I don't know why. Maybe it's to do with the actors that played Bombalurina in both of our productions. They're two different people, but I've always loved Bombalurina. Of course, Jelly Lorem, the caretaker. Always been a big fan. I think my least favorites are probably, Mungo Jerry and Rumple Teaser. I actually thought about cutting that song. I'm like, can I cut this? It actually turned out really well for us. It turned out really well for us, but I mean, I've always kind of been annoyed by the song, and I didn't really love the characters. I kind of found them a little annoying. Yeah.
Okay, that's a hot take. Well, that lends to the next question. What's your favorite song?
Ooh, my favorite song. Probably Old Deuteronomy. It's so simple. It's just repetitive. It just goes over and over. The entrance of Old Deuteronomy when he comes. I've always loved that moment. It's just the community. I think it's Old Deuteronomy, and then they just sing over and over the same refrain. That is that might be the first time anyone's ever said that, but I've always loved that song, that moment of the show. For me, it's a sunrise moment. His entrance is a sunrise moment. It's just so loving and communal, and like your dad coming home. That'd be tough for me to beat.
Yeah. I always ask one kind of unique one or specific one to you, and the one I'm most interested in is because you just mentioned the hip hop, and What was the easiest song to kind of convert into more of a hip hop number? And what was the hardest song to convert into kind of a hip hop number?
Easiest song easily was Rum Tum Tugger. The most difficult was the
okay.
Jellicle Ball. The Jellicle Ball was very, very challenging. But we were able to do it, and it was really, it ended up being really ceremonial, and which is what I think it is. I think it's ceremonial and spiritual, and you know, what we talked about with the Jellicle Ball was every community has something like that. You know, whether when I'm Italian Catholic, so I had a catechism, right? These big religious parties after I graduated from CCD or my confirmation, and quinceañeras and all of these different types of events. I'm like, that's what it is, which is there's part of it that's really religious, really spiritual, but another component of it that's really celebratory. So that's what we leaned into, and it was very difficult to translate to that kind of choreography vocabulary.
Yeah, I was expecting you to say the moments of happiness, because that feels like a very difficult, slow, melodic number to get into more of a beat.
Yeah, we didn't dance that. We didn't dance it at all. It was very much like
okay.
It was sermon-like for us. It was it opens Act 2, and it's kind of a regathering of the community, and we treated it more like a sermon, more like a little Sunday talk.
Okay.
Yeah, which is what I think it is.
I love that.
I think it's how it's written.
Yeah. So $1 million question. So my whole show is centered around the fact that I don't think Grisabelle was the right Jellicle choice for many reasons. So I want to hear you, Tim. Who's your Jellicle choice and why?
It's tough to get away from our adaptation, right? Because we set it up for Grisabella, and I think that the way we set it up, the way we position her within the community, the audience is asking the question that we talked about earlier, which is why? Why are you so upset at her? Why is she so outcast? Why is she excommunicated from the community? So within the vocabulary of our production, it was so heroic, because after she sings Memory, it's basically old Deuteronomy looking around, trying to get everyone's vote, right? For lack of a better word. And after her testimony, everyone kind of agrees. So it's very difficult to get away from that, considering our production, because if Grisabella doesn't get chosen at the end, we're going to have a real problem with the audience, because we've set it up for them to root for her in such a way. I think the other choice for me would probably be, just based on my own life and background, would be Gus the Theater Cat. I think that he's the other person that everyone, certainly in our production, beloved, rooted for, really felt invested in. This guy's got for us, he appears one time. He walks on, and when he walks off, you'd never see him before, you'd never see him after, because that actor doubled. Once he wasn't Gus again, he was back to somebody else. So I think that was a really special and unique framing for us as well, because it was just this chestnut of a moment, and then he's gone. So for me, that would be, that character always for me was my grandfather, who I said had Alzheimer's. And so for me, it was such a personal character, a personal moment that we really tried to take great care with. And so that would be if I wasn't going to go with Grisabella, it would definitely be Gus the Theater Cat.
Okay. I do track this. What am I putting down as the vote?
Gus the Theater Cat.
I'm putting down Gus. Okay, great. I love it.
Yeah.
I do have two questions though about this, because one is that, with you doubling Gus, is Gus not there at the end, like as Gus, to even be a chance to be chosen? Like because that's always I've seen other productions do that, where Gus is backed doubled as the other character, whether it's Buster Jones or in other places, other cats. And so I've always found it interesting if Gus isn't standing there with Grisabella at that moment to even be the choice. It's like, oh no, you've taken away the number other, like the other option everyone's thinking about.
Yeah, our production wasn't framed like that. Our production was framed with after Memory was over, and again, we used the music as our guide. After Memory, we go to, we go to the heralds, and we're off to the races. We didn't build in any like American Idol type of voting system. For us, it was obvious, right? And it was. She sings this song. Everyone, she's won everyone over. We go to the heralds. Old Deuteronomy walks out, and his perspective was like, guys, we treated this person like shit the whole show. Come on, guys. And it was a real quick and obvious Yeah. So no, Gus wasn't, to answer your question directly. No, Gus isn't out there for that scene. The
Okay.
actor is playing someone else. But I don't think anybody missed that or even considered that perspective.
No.
Yeah.
I think that only happens with exactly what you said. And I have seen this happen where it does feel like the 2 or 3 people that have a choice to be picked are lined up like an American Idol. And then it's you choose versus I've seen a lot of other ones go directly into, okay, she gets up and one of the cats goes to touch her and then she goes and is selected. How did you send her off? Like, what was your Heaviside layer?
Yeah. So I don't even believe that she goes off to die. Like, that's not even my thing. Like, for us, it was almost like a baptism. That's how we treated it. So how she went off is our set was very, you've seen the photos, very industrial, very, dilapidated theater, junkyard hybrid. And on stage the entire time, kind of upstage, hidden, but not, you could see it the whole time, was a genie lift, if you're familiar with that. We use it to hang lights.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it was time, the old Deuteronomy escorted her over to the genie lift that's been on stage the entire time. And at the moment she hit the button and the genie lift goes up and goes as high as the moon. So she's right next to what our moon was. And she doesn't disappear. She's part of the finale. She's singing in the middle of the finale, addressing of the cats. At one point, we bring her back down and she rejoins the community at the end and she's with them again. So for us, it was more like a renewal, a baptismal type of thing, all based in ceremony and much less about, death and that's stuff.
Yeah. Well, see, your version I could get more behind because I love the redemption arc. I love the bringing her back to her family. I don't love the great, now we're gonna send you off to the sky and you're gonna be gone. So it's like
I've never liked that.
Back,
I never understood it. I didn't get what it was about, and it didn't make any sense to me. It certainly didn't align with what we try to do, which is everyone deserves a second chance, right? I mean, I have family members to this day that we're not very close for whatever reasons, and for us, this kind of it just lent itself to the ceremonial aspect that we tried to pepper throughout, which was, we're going to send her up. She's going to be a part of this singing. And at the end, we're going to, I think it was Jelly Lauren who went over and brought her down and then escorted her down next to Old Deuteronomy. And they stood there center stage, hand in hand with the rest of the tribe singing together. I loved it.
Yeah, that's part of how I want the show to end. So with maybe Gus going up to first, I'm glad that you voted Gus too. Like that makes me really happy. Because now we're slowly influencing. So when you go into the third life of this and you do this, in however many years from now, I'm going to try to convince you I'll come back. I'll be there with you. I'll help sell tickets. Yeah. We will figure out a way to have Gus go, but still kind of keep the story the same with Grisabella having her redemption. I think it's there. And I'm convinced, unless you want to go rogue and we can go audience voting every night. That's the other option I really want. To let a different person go every night.
I don't know. I'd get on board with Gus if he was playing the melodica, playing the theme on the way up. That was someone we could try to introduce. I mean, I'd never even considered that, but I tell you what, if we ever do it again, I will see if I can consider something that is different. Just because if I do it a third time, I got to do something different.
Yeah, I want either audience voting or I want Old Deuteronomy to actually pick a different person every night based on how he felt the effort was given by the performers. I want it to be a little true family chaotic.
What if it's Old Deuteronomy?
He can pick himself one night.
Like the Jeopardy host scandal. It's like, we had all these auditions, but I'm actually going to host it.
But I still love the idea of if Old Deuteronomy is you get an Old Deuteronomy with some true ethical standards of being able to say, I'm going to actually watch today because they're performing, but they get a lot of time to sit and watch. Yeah. And I'm going to choose based on who really brings it that night, knowing that everybody doesn't have their best performance every night. We get it. You're doing this 8 times a week or however many times you're doing it. And there are going to be nights where that Old Deuteronomy is going to say, it was me. I truly gave the best performance tonight.
I'd see
so
that
it does work. Sure.
Yeah,
it does work. I think that they can choose themselves. Sometimes they choose different people. Yeah.
I watched everyone, and honestly, maybe you're sick, but I just wasn't feeling it today.
That I think is the other fun way. It would be really, I talked about it with a tour and I was like, you can't do this on tour because if you start having some like unnecessary infighting with the cast because of, I thought I brought it tonight and you picked them, and then you get on a bus for 9 hours to go to the next city, you're going to be in trouble. Yeah. But I think you could do it.
It'd be fun.
All right, that's my pitch. So when you're ready, you'll have my information. If this show's still going by then, we might have a different conversation.
We'll do it live.
But no,
This show live.
This has been this has been super fun. How can people stay in touch with you? I know we'll link the theater for everything, but to keep up with everything you're working on.
Yeah. I mean, MTH is the best way. So it's MTH Theater, spelled the American way, like the New York Times and the Washington Post, THEATER. And that's our handles on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and all that good stuff. And yeah, follow us on our website. And we're always doing, we try to do cool, innovative stuff. And yeah, we're a group of artists, and we're pretty happy to be able to do what we're doing.
I love it. I wish I got the chance to go this past summer, but now I'm more excited for our future collaboration version that we're going to do. And I hope it's not 7 years from now, but
7-year timeline.
Sometime soon. Yeah, your 7-year windows. But
yeah.
Well, this has been very, very fun. I love all new iterations, especially hearing that you got to do it twice. And I'm now crediting you all as the innovators for the Reimagined productions. This is you were the first, so you are the trendsetters.
I do feel that way. I mean, it's hard to take any kind of global credit for it, but again, the ridicule we received in 2018, I'm still recovering from it. So in 2025, I'm like, everyone's gonna feel like, everyone's doing it now, and now MTH is. I'm like, no, we did it when it was mocked.
Well, I'll put it out there because there's some historians that listen to this for sure, some Cats historians. So if you know of something that predates 2018 that does some type of reimagined production, and reimagined meaning not a different set or a different, like there's some tweaks like that, but a true reimagined production, email me, DM me, let me know, and then I'll pass it along to Tim. We'll see this. I feel like this is the first I've heard, but I also didn't start talking about the show till 2019.
I'd love to be able to claim it. So let me know how it goes.
I will keep you posted. Well, this has been such a fun episode. Thank you for coming on and sharing.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
And thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, a podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. Follow along. You could subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen to podcast. Follow us on social media at The Wrong Cat Died, or check our website, thewrongcatdied.com.